Hey guys, welcome back. It's been a long time, but Library of Orthonc, LOTR TCG, back with a unique video for today. I'm very excited about this one. Haven't done anything like this before, but we're actually involved with the LOTR TCG Players Council, and Ketura is here with us today. And we're going to be going through actually a number of spoilers from set V3, the Pelennor Fields. I'm very excited myself about this set because this is surrounding the cards from the King block or movie block era. The third movie, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
So that is my favorite format in LOTR TCG is the movie block. And this is kind of like the PC version's retool of that, and I'm really excited to see everything. I've got some spoilers for you here, but I'm really excited to be able to see the full set here when it comes out shortly. So, Ketura, do you maybe just want to tell us a little bit about the development of this set, the release date, that kind of stuff?
Sure. Yeah. So set V3, like you said, is very heavily based on Return of the King. Set V1 and V2 were based on Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers. And so this is just going to be doing the same sort of thing, but for the third movie and book. We are looking to be releasing it about halfway through next month. So around December 15th or thereabouts. And so as we get up to that release date, this will probably be one of the last videos we do on the subject, but we're going to be having more blog posts spoiling everything out, making sure that all the cards are out there so that people can look at them in advance. And then once that's released, we'll have our seasonal Yuletide leagues that will be up on GEMP, and people will be able to have at it, try out all the new cards, all the new strategies, and just see what's there. Hopefully it's a
Yeah, I
lovely
will say the
Christmas gift.
one thing that I always loved historically is spoiler season, and it's just so much fun to get spoilers of new cards. So it's
Mhm.
really cool that the PC is bringing that aspect back. So
If there's nothing else, we can do that. So here's the stat sheet that I've been showing people. So V3 itself has 130 cards. Most Decipher expansions were around 122. Of course, the main ones were 365, but that this makes it larger than those main sets, which is the largest set that the PC has ever done. We've got 40 errata that are coming along with those cards because there are some major mechanics that we are introducing, and so we are going to be applying those mechanics to some cards. And of course, a lot of it's just balancing, trying to nerf things, buff things, try to mix things up so that Basmelos does not win a fourth time in a row. gotta try and yank the rug out from underneath him somehow. Um,
reading some of these themes, and I was pretty excited because some of these seem like new strategies for these existing cultures.
yes, very much. In fact, that is some, especially with the raiders. The raider culture is going to be a huge focus here of the set because there's a lot of those cultures really peak here in Return of the King as far as their impact on the story. So this is if we're gonna focus on things like Mumax, it's gonna be when you're at the Pelennor Fields. So that's that's the kind of thing that we're looking at.
Yeah, very cool. So yeah, I'm excited to see where what I like too is people who watch my channel probably know I'm a big paper player, so I big into the traditional decipher cards, but also I like to see when the new cards come out if it can enhance the existing strategies. And it sounds like this is kind of a little bit of both, enhancing existing strategies, but also really coming up with entirely new themes that we haven't seen before at all.
Of course, yeah, that's very much what we're trying to do. In some cases, we're going as far back as Fellowship, like with the pipeweed, trying to pull that particular beloved strategy into the movie era, and just because a lot of times people don't play pipeweed very much in this era because it just can't compete. So we're hoping to give it some more tools that will let it go. And then we've also
Yeah,
got
that's
things
awesome.
like,
That's what I love is to see like
yeah.
pumps for existing decks. That's probably my favorite.
All right. Well, let's hop into a primer for the mechanics. Some people may get tired of hearing this introduction, but it is something we want to make sure that everyone understands exactly how these things work. So there's three new mechanics that we are introducing into V3. The first one here is the relentless keyword. It's fairly straightforward, and it just means that basically we have a third round of skirmishes after Fierce. So any minion that has that relentless keyword is going to have to be skirmished a third time. So
Is
here
this a spoiler of this NK, or has this been seen already?
nope, yeah, this is a spoiler of it. This is
Oh
all
wow!
all
All
these
right,
cards in here are
first you
new.
saw it here first, guys. So yeah.
So we have
Well,
talked about it a little bit on other videos, but one of the sub themes is the concept of the empowered Nazgul, where Sauron has given his dark blessings to all the Nazgul that attacked Minas Tirith, and so we're taking that idea by releasing versions of the 9 Nazgul that cost 1 more than normal, have 1 strength more than normal, and then have text that we hope is going along with that theme of being the head of their particular part of the army. Um,
very
so
interesting. Yeah, I like this one. It's simple and elegant and very powerful. Clearly, just from reading it, you can tell it's a powerful card. But it needs to be to be replace the namesake NK. But yeah, this could
right,
definitely slot into the right strategy here, where like you said, just a very very powerful being able to skirmish 3 times. I assume relentless and fierce are mutually exclusive terms. Like if something talks about a fierce skirmish, that only applies to fierce, and same with the new relentless skirmish. Is that true?
that is correct. Yes. So if you have somebody that specifically targets a fierce minion, it won't automatically hit a relentless minion unless they also happen to have that. And it can also result in a situation where if you have somebody who is relentless but not fierce, they still participate in 2 skirmishes, just not during the fierce skirmish. So they kind of skip
Oh,
over and then do that third time. So it does not include fierce within it. It's an additional level that
got
has
it.
to be unlocked.
Yeah. So in theory, you can be relentless only and not fierce. Obviously, this in K here is both.
Right.
But yeah, that makes very much sense. And any bonuses that occurred during the fierce skirmish, those bonuses don't automatically count for the relentless skirmish unless
Correct.
it says
Yes.
like until end of turn or something like that. Then
Right.
you get your end of turn bonuses, but you don't get fierce bonuses.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
that's exactly
Yeah.
correct. And so you hit the nail on the head. The main strength of the Senkea is that he's going to get 3 wounds out instead of the normal 2 that a Nazgul does by getting involved with 3 skirmishes. But then we also have this ability on top of it. At the start of each skirmish involving Ilaria and Kea and a wounded character, you may exert him to heal that character and exert a companion. So basically, he gets to transfer that wound somewhere and
Interesting. Yeah, that
play.
sounds very strong. Obviously, I'd say you want to put him on unwounded characters if you can, as the free
Which
people's
is
player.
to their benefit
You know,
too, the fact that you're spreading
yeah,
it out and, making sure that
yeah.
everybody's weakened, like that's
And probably this is
yeah,
one of those minions you're going to want to skirmish last because if you let your opponent place the exertion, they can exert and then combine that with winning a skirmish to potentially kill a character. But if you make them go last, then the exertion's not going to kill anyone at least.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so on to the next mechanic, and that is the 2 dot and 3 dot uniqueness. So up until now, we've just had 2 layers of uniqueness. We had non-unique, which let you just have 4 copies in play, and we had unique, which has 1 dot. 1 dot meaning you can have 1 copy in play. And so we are introducing a new concept of 2 dot and 3 dot, which are simply expansions of that idea that you may have two copies of that card in play or 3 copies of that card in play. We actually more or less stole this idea from the Star Wars CCG. They have a similar concept there. But I think that it's important for us to have that ability to fine tune exactly how powerful a card is. We've had a number of cards, especially when dealing with errata, where there is a particular ability that seems fine at 2 or 3 copies, but is too cracked at 4 copies, but would be too weak at 1. And so we just wanted to have a little more resolution to be able to address those cards. But that doesn't stop us from playing around with the idea and really exploring. Okay, well, what can you do with a card that is limited to just 2 copies? And so this is an example of that. So duty no less than yours is capturing that moment. That's actually a 2 towers moment. This is cheating a little bit, but it's that moment when Faramir looks down at the at the dead Southron and he sits down and he wonders, like, is this guy really as evil as one might imagine? So it says each time a raider minion dies, you may exert a raider minion to exert an unbound companion. If you can spot another duty no less than yours, you may discard it to also hinder that companion. And we'll get to hinder in a moment, but really, that's really going to kind of represent making that companion kind of standing and pausing it for a moment in the middle of the battlefield, like not, perhaps getting tunnel vision and not really seeing his surroundings. But yeah, so that's what this does.
concept of what you're saying is this card in particular, you can have 2 down, and then it specifically references the second copy to give it an extra effect.
Yep.
Yeah, I see how that's kind of using uh, the 2 dot uniqueness mechanic for that. So and again, there's another one of those cards that's letting you place wounds anywhere. I think that's a very strong ability, like what we saw in that previous Inkea,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like promise keeping on Golem or whatever. Yeah, it's a very strong ability, and it's nice to see more cultures get access to that.
Yeah. Sorry, let me close Discord here. Did not realize that it was still open, and it's giving me bloops and bleeps. Okay. Hopefully that's gone now. All right. So last mechanic is the biggest. It is the most impactful, and it is the most new. This is a brand new concept that does not exist in the Lord of the Rings trading card game. This was really kind of the strategic focus around our design process, was that we wanted to introduce a mechanic that had not existed at all. We wanted to sharpen our design chops, make sure that we knew how to program stuff like this for GIMP. And we wanted to just make sure that we had this in our repertoire, because there are some changes that we want to do in the future that are going to be even more invasive and transformative. And so, I mean, we just needed to cut our teeth on something. So this is kind of our first foray into that. So Hinder is intended to be a temporary disabling of a card. So when you hinder a card, you flip it face down. And while it's face down, you basically cannot use it. You cannot spot it. You cannot normally target it the way you normally would if you've hindered Aragorn. You cannot spot Aragorn or exert Aragorn or do anything like that. And then once you restore a card, you flip it back face up and it re-enters play, and it's all exactly the way it was. But then the twist on top of this is that whenever any player reconciles, that player is going to automatically restore all of their hindered cards. And so this gives us an asymmetric mechanic that favors Shadow over Free Peoples, because the Shadow player is going to be reconciling every single site, whereas the Free Peoples player is only going to reconcile right before they stop moving. So anything that gets hindered on the Shadow side is going to come back a little bit faster. One of the things that we're
Yeah, it
trying to
comes back
do.
on the double. If the Free
Mhm.
People's player double moves, then the Shadow player restores his hindered cards.
Exactly. So you might be able to temporarily push away Sauron's forces and get yourself safe, but now you got to deal with it all over again. Um, and so this is going to be, I think, a bit of a sea change. We're going to be applying the Hinder mechanic not only to a lot of the new V3 cards are playing with Hinder, but we're also among those 40 errata are cards that are going to be altering things like Sleep Caradhras and Saruman's Power, big sweeping cards that are discarding a whole ton of cards. Those are going to be altered to instead Hinder. So they will still have a big, powerful impact on that turn, but it's no longer going to be a matter of, I spent 4 or 5 sites building up my support area, and in one card, Gandalf has wiped it all clean. So, yeah.
Yeah, it just opens up a lot more design options, as you said, where you have a intermediate level effect that's something less than discarding, but yeah, it gives you those options. I like that.
Yeah. So Sauron's Reach here is an example of a V3 card that utilizes Hinder. So this is going to look very similar to Saruman's Power, but it's kind of keyed a little bit more to the Sauron culture. So we have exert 3 Sauron minions or spot Sauron to hinder all Free People's support cards. So just right away, all your allies, your possessions, your conditions that are in the support area will all get hindered. But then, as an additional cost, for each card that is hindered, you must also hinder a Shadow support card. So you'll have to pay for it. If you can't just lord your support area over theirs, but this will give you a very big reset for this turn anyway.
Yeah,
So,
and it comes at a hefty cost. Exerting 3 minions is
mhm.
uh, pretty hard to do sometimes. You have to have them
Yeah,
down and have the vitalities to spare to do that. But yeah, I see that that's a powerful effect at a heavy cost.
yeah. Okay, so and in fact, let me just hop back over. So with that duty no less than yours, we can see that this is going to be basically stopping that companion for until the end of the turn, right? So they're stuck there in their little wonderings, and philosophizing. So hinder can be used offensively, of course, but there's also some really cool stuff that we've come up with that is about either defensively hindering or hindering as an interesting cost on your side. And so one of the new subcultures that we are introducing is the concept of Southern trackers, which didn't exist before. And so the idea of these Southern trackers is that when they enter play, they might set up a literal ambush, as opposed to, I mean, they have lots of cards that deal with the ambush keyword, but actually laying down and hiding, lying in wait for the Free People's player to come in. So each of them have this text here at the top that says, when you play this minion, remove 3 Twilight or hinder this minion. So you can look at the stats of each of these cards, and a 3 Twilight minion for 12 strength is a very good deal. On the other hand, if you apply that additional 3 Twilight, then it becomes a little more in line with what you would normally get for around 6 Twilight. And so this guy can
I really like the idea behind that here, where it's the first one in particular, the Desert Windstalker at the lower cost. I like him as like a, if you're trying to set up a swarm, even you set him down, he's safe on the first turn. So even if you're not ready to swarm yet, you put him down and he's safe. And then you can, reconcile your hand, get more minions in hand, and then flip him up. And then he's ready to join the swarm that you're playing at the second site, assuming your opponent does double move into it. So yeah, it does have
exactly.
that surprise jump out mechanic. Well, surprise in a sense. They they
It's
know
a
the
surprise
ambush
to the
is coming,
characters,
but
but the
he's
player
lying
can
in
see it.
wait.
Yeah. And the fact that these cards are sitting here lying, face down in front of you, you can say, okay, well, something's coming. This trap is swiftly approaching. And so
Do
the
you
only
have to
difference,
when you play this, like the Desert Windstalker? When I play this, do I reveal it to my opponent and then place it face down, assuming that
yes.
I'm not
So,
going to choose
and in
to
fact, you
remove
hadn't
3?
mentioned that. We're going to have to probably add that to the rules. The intention is not that Hinder be a hidden information mechanic. You are still able to inspect the contents of any hindered card,
Okay.
but of course, then you have to keep track of it. In a real paper game, this may get a little finicky, but in GEMP,
Uh-huh.
the way that it's implemented, the hover option still works, so you can always just
Got it. Got it.
mouse
Yeah.
over it. And
See, it reminds me a little bit in Magic of phasing, where you're phasing in and phasing out, but also a little bit of the morph mechanic where you're playing face down cards and can flip and surprise. But I guess it doesn't have, as you said, it doesn't have that surprise aspect to it of, oh, I
right.
didn't know what that was going to be. Yeah.
And actually, interestingly, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I did look at Phase just to see their rules and stuff and how exactly did they handle this. But another way that Hinder does crop up is that it feels a lot like tapping in a lot of situations, especially when you use it
Mhm.
as a self cost. If you have a condition that hinders itself to do a particular effect, that's kind of like saying, you tap this creature, you do it for
Yeah, yeah, and they
just
have
this
like
one
a
turn.
stun mechanic in Magic where it's like tap and
Mhm.
it doesn't untap in the next untap step. That sort of, yeah, it's got a lot of. It's kind of a cousin to any of those mechanics,
Yeah,
but
definitely
not
playing in that
exactly.
same area without being a
Mhm,
direct rip off anywhere.
mhm,
But
yeah.
yeah, so the main difference between these two, there's 4 total Sauron trackers in this particular cycle, as well as a number of support cards that are gonna help them out. The Desert Wind Stalker grants all Southrons ambush 1, and then the Desert Wind Whisper makes it so that each minion with ambush X is strength plus X, and so he can really come in and be a force multiplier for any of these ambushers, any of these would be ambushers. So yeah, that's I think one of the more popular subcultures among the playtesters. Everyone who sees this goes, "Oh, I can see how that's going to work. This is
Yeah,
interesting."
yeah, I like that. I like it at a cheap ended cost too. Like I said, I hate putting down a couple cheap minions and then they lose to your opponent's best 2 characters like
And you're
Aragorn with
like, "Why did I even
Andro and
do
the
that?"
Last
Like,
Alliance
yeah,
or whatever. This keeps it safe. So it's like, hey, I'm just gonna hide the first round and then I'll come back the second round once I have more reinforcements. I like
yeah.
that idea.
And one thing I'd like to point out about the art, the one over here on the right is actually Weta concept art, because there's only so many
Okay.
images that we can really pull from the films, and so we took this
Yeah,
and we.
yeah. I didn't recognize that one. I feel like the one on the left is like a zoomed in version of
Oh
the
yeah.
card we already have, but the
Oh, if
one
it
on the
is,
right
that's a
does look
mistake of
new.
mine. But yeah,
So
it's
there's a
so
lot of
hard to.
similar images in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, and it can be really hard to look around and be like, okay, is this particular image used anywhere? I ran into that multiple times with the Nazgul, where I'm like, oh, there's a perfect shot of a Nazgul, and then it turned out that it already existed. So I had to keep
Yeah, it was on
the whole
some no
list.
name
And
one. Yeah.
yeah, Okay, so so that was one of those brand new things that we're dealing with, but here's one that helps shore up an existing deck. So in this case, knights and fortifications. So this is the Great Gate of Minas Tirith. There is another card that represents the Great Gate, but I think it's got a slightly different name. But it's playing in that same conceptual space. So this is a
Yeah, I don't
fortification.
recognize that image, and that's a cool image.
Yeah, it is a blink and you miss it right before they bring in the really crappy battering ram before Grand. When they're rushing in for the first
Uh,
time, there was a shot that just perfectly gave us the gate, and I was like,
yeah,
all right,
I
there we
like it.
go.
Probably the
So
most expensive fortification out there, but it seems like it's very good.
yes, and it's got a pretty wide-reaching effect. So to play, you exert a Gondor Companion or Spot 3 Knights, which is a standard set of text that is on most fortifications.
Yeah.
Each time the special ability of a Shadow support card is used, you may hinder a fortification to hinder that card. Then you may exert X Knights to hinder X other copies of that card with the same title. So if you've got besiegers bringing in their towers, or if you have something else that has multiple copies of a particular support area condition, if there's a bunch of Saruman's ambitions, I suppose, or something like that, you can use this to. It doesn't prevent the usage, but it will knock that particular card down and then allow you to prevent other copies of that same
So
card.
they get one use of it, and then in response to the use, you hinder it.
You hinder it and then hinder all its friends. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. So like if I'm playing Ninja Golem and they've got a promise keeping down that they think they're going to get, four exertions out of between Smeagol and Gollum, or between Shelob and Gollum, and four skirmishes, they get their first exertion, then I hinder it, and then they don't get any more because it's hindered.
So
That's kind of
promise
the
keeping in
idea.
particular is that's an each time. So that is not triggered. So this is specifically going off of special abilities. So that'll be the bold text. So if you have like a skirmish
Oh yeah,
ability.
special. Oh, so it has to be a special ability, not just a triggered ability. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So promise keeping won't be able
This can't
to
hurt
hit.
that. This
Right.
can't hinder that.
Mhm.
Hmm.
But
So
something
it has
like
to be
what
one
is
of those that says like skirmish colon do this.
do this. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Mhm.
I think what is it, siege towers or something like that, where you remove a token to make a besiege strength +1. Like this
Mhm.
will hit that. So
Got it. Okay.
it will also hit many of the Corsair ships and things like that. A lot of them have abilities that can be used, and the thing is, this is not keyed to any particular phase. So if they've got a shadow ability that is being used, you can use this to knock those down in the middle of that phase. All right, we talked about pipeweed. This is one of the several pipeweed cards that are being introduced. This one, I think, has the potential to be one of the biggest shifts in the way that pipeweed is played. So this is a pipeweed that plays on a wizard. Each companion who's bearing a pipe is strength +1, but then it has this regroup ability. You exert bearer and discard this, and then this phase you may use special abilities on pipes as if it were the fellowship phase. So this will allow you to, pull out your pipes and start smoking, which of course you can do quite a few things with that in.
Pretty excited when I saw this one. Um, just from knowing how pipeweed works, you get into situations where you're wanting to double move, but you need to stop and smoke. And this basically says you can smoke and then still move. So
Yep.
it definitely shifts the power of the archetype to give it the ability to do the piping during the regroup phase. So that's a very nice ability, and I guess it's going to go on Gandalf primarily, I think.
Yep.
Because
But maybe
you're
you've got
bearing it on a
Radagast too.
companion,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Or Radagast, I guess, is another reasonable target. But yeah, so bearer must be a wizard. Yeah, yeah. This either way, this looks very strong. I would certainly see at least a couple copies of this, so you get it early and be able to do the regroup smoking.
Yeah. All right. And then, so let's talk about one of the more elaborate designs that is being released here with V3. So there are a couple of concepts that we have been percolating on almost since the PC was formed for like 5 years now. The original idea was the building of the Tower of Barad-dûr. That what if you could represent putting down the foundation, and then you build up the tower all the way up until you get to the eye, and the eye is going to give you something really big and mean and scary. So this eventually evolved into the idea of a pyramid, where you have multiple level 1 cards that you play, and then you have level 2 cards that you play. And then once you have enough of those in play, you'll finally be allowed to play the capstone that goes on top. And that capstone is going to be something big and scary. There are 2 pyramids that are coming in V3, one on the shadow side, one on the Free People side. And the shadow side one represents the encroaching darkness, the clouds of darkness that Sauron is putting out. As it gets darker and darker and darker, things are looking worse and worse for the Fellowship. The orcs are much more active and able to do things. And so we're gonna take a look at some of these. One of the distinctions of the tier 2 there in the middle is that there's a number of different cards that can go in those slots. So there's going to be about 5 different tier 2s that you can pick to kind of mix and match, or just pick the one that you think is the best and get 2 copies of it, and just find whatever works for your particular strategy. So I'll
You
move on
can
to the next.
still, to be clear, with these 2 uniqueness dot, you could still play 3 in your deck, for example, to draw
Yes,
it faster. You just can only have 2 on the table.
correct. Yeah, just like a regular unique companion, you can have 4 copies of Aragorn in your deck, just only 1 on the table. So
Got it. Yeah. And I think what you said earlier that is key when I was analyzing these cards, I'm like, well, your opponent's just going to play Sleep Carriage Ross or Grown Suddenly Tall, and then you'll lose your whole tower. But I think that's very critical what you mentioned that those cards are receiving errata, because that makes having a support area build up strategy a lot more feasible. Because if they get hindered, they'll still come back and you can still keep building. So I think that's great. Yeah, these were ones that were hard for me to analyze the power level without
yeah,
seeing them in
it's
action, because
it yeah.
it's very hard to know if you're going to be able to build up the tower. I did like, in looking at these, it looks like you have to tower the way it's designed, that you
Mhm.
can't get that 3rd tier without having at least one part of the 2nd tier,
Yep.
based on the spotting requirements there. And the top tower is ridiculous. Probably the highest power shadow support card I've ever seen, obviously. But the work to get there is also more work than
It's not
anything I've ever
trivial.
seen. So
Yeah, like when you build it out, you can accelerate things pretty quickly. People have built decks to get this tower out as quickly as possible. But
uh,
as people will see as we go through these, it's not like you are doing the work, and if you're going to do the work, you should be able to have the reward. So on
yeah,
this slide, we'll take a look at both the bottom of the pyramid and the very top, the capstone. So Ominous Sky is this 3-dot card, where you want to get as many of these out as you can. And this is kind of your support for the pyramid. So it's going to have things that help you get that pyramid out. So first, it has a general purpose ability that is usable in a lot of different decks. You'll notice that these are not keyed to just Sauron. It is really kind of intended that this is something that is available to a number of different kinds of decks that may not be inside this
yeah,
culture.
anyone who wants orcs,
Yeah.
yeah.
So each time you play an orc, you may hinder this to add 1. So if you have all 3 of these out, then that's essentially basically being able to say that you can play an orc each turn for Twilight cost -3 almost. And so this is something that you'll be able to repeatedly do in as fine-grained a manner as you want. Maybe you want to hold on to one of the ominous guys for later. You'll also see the Twilight keyword. Twilight, of course, shows up on other cards. That is the identifier here for the pyramid. Other cards are going to mention Twilight conditions specifically, and so that's kind of just talking about the pyramid is what it's referring
Are
to.
these the only Twilight conditions? I know there's Twilight minions, but are these
There's
the only
Twilight
Twilight
minions,
conditions
yeah,
so
but
far?
these are the only Twilight conditions. So that's
Okay.
it. Really kind of dovetailed. We could have come up with a new keyword, but we were like, well, Twilight. Not really what it is that it's uh, choking out the sun and everything. So it kind of
Yeah.
fits there. And then the ability here, shadow or regroup. Remove 2 Twilight to choose a shadow condition from your discard pile. Shuffle it into your draw deck, or you may play it if it is Twilight. So this is kind of your way of trying to recycle out the pyramid pieces. If your opponent has discarded them, or if you yourself have
Yeah.
discarded them in a reconcile or something, you can use this to kind of fish them back out and try to build that pyramid back up. Um, at a loss, of course, because you're spending that to Twilight. But again, that's also something that is generally useful. If your opponent has gotten rid of one of your key conditions, you can at least put it back into your draw deck and hope to get it back again. So
Yeah, and
once again,
nice. You can use it in the regroup too, even where sometimes there's extra Twilights sitting around you're not using anyway. Um,
exactly.
Pulling it back out. That's a nice. nice that it has both those phases.
And then looking at the capstone here, Endless Night. So you'll see that this has got yellow all over it. It's not quite an artifact, but there's a reason for that. We want to communicate something about this that you'll see here in a moment. So it says to play, hinder 4 Twilight conditions. So that does mean that you either need 2 copies of Ominous Sky and 2 copies of the Tier 2 Cover of Darkness, or you need 3 and 1. So like you said, you do have to engage a little bit with the whole pyramid mechanic if you're going to get this capstone. And then a whole list of things. Orcs gain Fierce, Trolls gain Enduring, Nazgul gain Damage +1, your men in Uruk-hai gain Archer. All of those very useful for a variety of things if they can get the whole pyramid to work. And then as a shadow ability, you may hinder X of your other shadow support cards to place Sauron from your hand or discard pile. He is Twilight cost -X. And I think I skipped over a spot. This cannot be discarded or hindered, which is why
That's
it's all marked
important.
in yellow. Yeah,
No.
somehow I missed that. But yeah, so once this is in play, once you've gone through all the work of finally building up the pyramid, at least the other pieces can still be disrupted, but this one is not going anywhere once it has gotten into play.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, is there ways to there's that one Smeagol boat card that lets you like put conditions back on top of or back in your opponent's hand or stuff like that. So you can still do
Yep,
that, but that's like
there
the
are a
only way you
handful.
can
Yeah,
disrupt it.
there are a handful of ways you could do that. Yeah, there are things that return to hand. There are things that return to draw deck. Those could
Yeah.
target it, but they're fairly few and far between. And in fact, within movie block, I think there might only be a couple. Those couple might turn out to be
Yeah, that one I think that one I was referencing is from the next block, maybe even
yeah.
so. But
But
yeah,
if they
that
do
I mean that's
exist,
awesome. Like
yeah.
the way that it's the capstone of every culture really, and gives
Mhm.
every culture a different buff that's very strong.
Yeah, not every orc wants to be fierce, but every major orc strategy would not be mad at fierce. If you had a Moria swarm that was fierce, for instance, that could be even more destructive than it normally is. Trolls, of course, can get even huger. They've got all that vitality, and now they can use it. Nazgul usually only fierce, but now they can dole out even
Yeah.
more
I
attacks.
like
And
this
then
as some kind of, I don't know if it makes sense, some kind of Southron or Easterling swarm where you've got all the archer men and you make all your men into archers and they're small minions. And you just get a bunch of archers. That's where my mind was going with it.
And that is the kind of thing that we're hoping to do. Is when you look at these cards, your brain starts cranking. You're going, I wonder if I can build a deck out of this. I sure hope so. That's that's what we're going for. So then let's take a look at the middle tier there, the swap outable pieces. Like I said, there's about 5 of them. We're only going to show 2 of them here, but you can kind of get a feel for the different kinds of things that you might slot in. So this is Cover of Darkness. They've all got an Omen related subtitle. So we've got Omen of Horror on the left and Omen of Gloom on the right. The Omen of Horror here, to play, hinder 2 Twilight conditions, and all of them are going to have that. So you have to have at least 2 copies of the initial Ominous Sky, or 1 and another Cover of Darkness if you want to go for that. And then you have this Skirmish ability: exert an orc or troll and hinder 2 Twilight conditions to make that minion strength +2. So you've got yourself a bit of a repeatable, strength buff that can be used in a variety of ways, but you're probably going to be limited to doing it only a handful of times. If you have all of the non-capstone Twilight conditions in play, that's 5 of them. So you'll have access to be able to do this ability twice
Yeah.
if you
And
have
I
it
think
all
it's
up.
an interesting use of the hinder mechanic to hinder your own cards to get a bonus. That's like,
Mhm.
yeah, kind of like exert to do something or hinder your own card to do something. It's a similar concept where you're taking a harmful effect but giving yourself a bonus to do it.
And this is where, from a design standpoint, it starts to resemble tapping a lot,
Mhm.
because you're going to get it back, but you still have to you have to have those resources in play to be able to use them.
Yeah.
And then for the Ringwraith version over here, once again, to play, hinder 2 Twilight conditions, and then a Shadow ability, hinder this condition to take a Twilight card into hand from your draw deck. And so this can really be used to accelerate the pyramid itself by pulling Twilight cards out, but it does not specify a Twilight condition. So you could also use this to pull Twilight Nazgul or the Sauron Raves or something like that if you wanted to try and utilize it for that use. And then it's also got a general purpose ability here to kind of, most of these have abilities that you want to use that are going to hinder themselves in some way or another. But if you don't end up using them this turn, you have this regroup ability: hinder a Twilight card to add 1 Twilight. And since all of your cards are about to be restored when you reconcile as soon as the regroup phase is over, this is really just kind of a way for you to burn up any resources that did not get used over the course of that particular site. And this one also does not specify a Twilight condition, so you can also use it on your Twilight Nazgul or whatever.
Yeah, I missed that. Yeah, that you also could get a minion with that.
Yeah, so that's doesn't do anything to really advance your. It doesn't do anything against the Free People's player per se, but this is really just kind of a build up, kind of
that
get
advances
going
your building
faster.
very nicely. Yeah.
And this is a good example of one that you probably don't need 2 copies of, because the ability wouldn't really make sense. It could make sense to have 2 copies of the one on the left, just so that you even then, yeah, maybe not. There's some of these that operate a little bit differently, but sometimes it does. Some of them do say specifically hinder me, as opposed to hindering.
The one on the left is hinder 2. This one is just hinder this.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely different costs there.
So yeah,
these cards definitely took the most headspace for me to wrap my head around.
It's one that you really have to sit down and just throw it into a deck and play and see how it goes. And then I'm sure there's certain kinds of decks that are going to really be able to pop off with this if they can get the capstone going. And there's also just some effects that I think are going to be generally an improvement to a particular deck. Being able to get your orcs out cheaper all the time. That's something that can be worth it on its own. That's practically what Moria builds itself off of, right? Is generating all that Twilight. So this is
and you said this tier here has 1 for each culture.
not quite 1 for each culture. I think we've only actually got Sauron and Ringwraith, but it's just 5
there's
different
different
cards.
versions of or different options in this level.
Yep. Okay. And to spoil a little bit more, that's not actually here yet. The Free People's version of the pyramid is the beacons. So you've got the shadow here, and you've got the light there. So they're going to be lighting their beacons and building them up to some big amazing effect. And we're not going to talk about what exactly, but so you can sort of.
I feel like Knights is going to get really scary.
All right. Speaking of Knights, here's a Knight. Although we talked about that in another video, the Knight Pippin. But one of the things that we're also going to try and do is try to add a few more options for Shire to compete in a skirmishing fashion. Which they do have a couple of good options now, but we're trying to give them abilities that aren't just flat out, oh yeah, give them additional strength. Because that isn't really what the Shire is supposed to be about. So here's one particular combo piece that is being introduced. There's actually a third card, which is for Frodo. So we're going to have that whole statement that Sam makes, for Frodo, for the Shire, for my old gaffer. So this is kind of capturing that moment.
It's like the quote. Yeah, that's cool.
So for the Shire here, says spot a Hobbit companion except for the Ring Bearer. In Region 1, hinder all other Hobbits. So basically, they're not going to get involved with any skirmishes or anything. And so you've only got, even though you may not have a defender bonus, this particular guy is going to be the only option that you're going to be able to skirmish against. So maybe it's a sacrificial lamb, but maybe it's not. In Region 2, make that Hobbit defender +2 until the regroup phase. So once again, putting forth one particular Hobbit to try and take on as many people as they can. And then in Region 3, make that Hobbit enduring until the regroup phase. So they'll be able to utilize some of their vitality temporarily for a strength boost, but it won't. There's a trade-off there, of course, and they have to get exerted. And if they don't have a way of exerting themselves, then it's not even really going to help.
Yeah.
And then for my,
I like this card. I like this card. How it's probably the best abilities earlier on, and then the abilities get slightly worse as you move, which is typical how this type of effect works. I guess it reminds me of like Gandalf, leader of the company, who has the different bonuses, and they're all good, but they slightly decline as you go.
Yeah.
That first one I feel like could be a huge choke type, or I guess it only lasts for the turn, but you're hiding all of your guys. But I guess that could put your ring bearer at risk too if you're like really heavy on the amount of hobbits and you all of you hide.
Well, on the other hand, now that you bring that up, like you very well, like if you did this on Pippin, for instance, your ring bearer would get hindered, and so he's unable to be assigned, he's unable to be spotted.
You could hinder the ring bearer.
Yeah, the ring bearer is not
Oh, so you just have to
necessarily.
spot a hobbit except the ring bearer. It's not hinder all hobbits except the ring bearer. It includes the ring bearer.
That's correct.
Interesting. I was reading that too fast. I was thinking the ring bearer was excluded because of that first line, but that's just for the spotting.
And there's actually a number of shadow effects that are going to be able to hinder the ring bearer, usually as a cost in some way, because shadow doesn't want the ring bearer to be safe and tucked
No,
away,
no,
right?
hindering the ring bearer
So
sounds awesome for the free
yeah,
people's player. It's just like a free turn. It's like
right, exactly. So you very well could use this in at the very start to make a run for the site 3 and hope that none of your companions, all the companions that are
because
left, are
you
able
stay
to.
if you played it on the first site, you'd stay hindered all the way until 3,
Yep,
and
yeah,
you'd
you
be
would.
choking too. Because for site movement, the hindered people don't count as companions, right? Like they don't add one, or they do.
So that's actually one that we're still deliberating over, but I think we are
Okay.
gonna like they're not going to be countable for the purposes of something like Shotgun and Kea. So if you have a hindered companion, he won't be able to spot it to be able to
Uh-huh.
spot 6 companions. But I think for the movement, we're still going to make them count, just because choke is something that we're trying to not really enable.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that is a little bit
Fair.
in flux at the moment. Trying to decide what the rules should be is one of those things that we've had to figure out how to do. So
Yeah.
pros and cons to both kinds, but we will definitely make sure that the rule supplement is very clear on the point as far as what exactly it does.
Yeah, it's clear on that.
Yeah, and then the other card here from Mild Gaffer: spot a hobbit skirmishing more than one minion. Resolve skirmishes between that hobbit and those minions individually. Until the regroup phase, add a burden each time that hobbit loses a skirmish and a threat each time that hobbit wins. So this is another way to try and utilize the hobbits' vitality without just giving them a bunch of strength. If you have a small swarm that is stacked up on Sam or Frodo, you can use this to kind of, okay, we're going to take you one at a time. And I might be able to avoid getting overwhelmed there. I don't know if I'm going to have enough vitality to survive all these losses, but at the
Yeah.
very least, I'm not getting one shot by a big giant swarm. So yeah, that's what we're doing there. And then one of the biggest injustices of King Block, as I've said before, is that Decipher did not give us a Mount Doom for us to actually finally walk up and throw the ring into. And so most of the sites that we're introducing in V3 are actually Site 8s and Site 9s that are going to be representing the journey to Mount Doom. To kind of give us that moment, so you can finally say, "Okay, I made it to Mount Doom, and I finally won, and I throw the ring in," instead of just making it to the Blacklands or whatever else was there in King Block.
Actually, King has the most boring site path,
Oh yeah,
for
it's
sure.
it's awful. It's one of the main reasons why we switched over to multipath in PC movie, just so that we could say, okay, people can bring their fellowship and their tower sites if they want, because this is just hot garbage. But hopefully it'll be less hot garbage now that we've got some of these cool options here. So
Yeah.
Gorgoroth Waste. So this is representing those moments when Frodo and Sam have to throw all their stuff off of them. They have to get rid of all their equipment that's just dragging them down. You'll see that it only has a shadow number of 5, which is really low for a site 8. But in the text here, when moving here, for each Free People's card, any kind of card, born by companions, the Free People's player must discard it or add 2. So you're really going to have to look at all this equipment that you've been carrying all the way through the site path and decide, is this something that I can afford to carry on with me, or do I need to
Yeah.
chuck it off?
Yeah, I'm just thinking like this with a traditional deck, if you're playing like elves and men or elves or something, you're carrying so many support cards because conditions are still, I mean, conditions that are played on companions,
Hmm.
possessions, rings, I guess
Rings, yeah.
artifact rings. How does this affect the one ring? Can the one ring you can't discard the one ring, can you?
No, but so this is for each Free People's card, and the One Ring is neither Free People's nor Shadow. So the
Oh,
One
that's
Ring,
the
the
loophole.
One Ring won't be considered by
Okay.
this
The one
dice.
ring is the card type one ring. I remember
Yes,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. So
So yeah, so
I'm
that's.
always looking for the loophole in the wording, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's
well,
not
and
there.
it's something that we had to figure out. Can the One Ring be hindered? And for the moment, there's no rule that says it can't be, but the effects that do it, we have to think very carefully while we're designing. Is this something that we should
Uh,
allow? Especially because a lot of the rings give you that +2 vitality, and it's like, well, that can very easily turn into a one
yeah,
shot that
that
just
would be
wins you the
mean if you
game.
turn that down and then you are
Yeah.
immediately killed because you lost the extra vitality.
Right. I imagine that's going to happen happen a lot just with Anduril and Gandalf's staff and stuff going forward, but being able to do it
Oh,
with
that's
the
true.
ring is,
Yeah. So you hinder Anduril on exhausted Aragorn, and he
and
dies.
yeah, that's an instant death. Yeah, because he loses that
Yeah,
vitality bonus.
that's brutal. Yeah.
And that was already possible. It's just that there weren't all that many options that could hit an artifact. But now that
Yeah,
Hinder is a
yeah.
little
It
more
was already
important.
possible to discard it, but yeah, artifacts in general were very hard to discard. I think like Grand is like the one of the only ways you can
Yeah.
touch artifacts. You know.
And then Sight 9. So this is one of the Mounts Doom that we've got. So this one is Pinnacle of Doom. It's a mountain. At the start of each phase, the shadow player may hinder a card, except a companion or the One Ring.
Oh yeah, there you said about the One Ring. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I mean,
this
this is
one,
very strong because that's like Fellowship, Shadow,
well, not
Maneuver.
Fellowship because you haven't moved there yet. But yeah, starting with Shadow.
Oh god. Okay, so you move there, and then you're
Mhm.
starting the Shadow phase. So you've got Shadow, Maneuver, Archery, Skirmish.
Assignment.
So
And then
you're
each of the
hinder.
skirmishes counts as their own phase as well. And if you
Oh,
have
each
Fierce
skirmish
and if you
counts as
have
its own. So
Relentless,
they'll
yes.
basically have no cards left unhindered by the
It
end.
very much like I can tell you from experience playing with this card, it feels like you're fighting a boss battle because everything is just slowly crumbling away
Yeah.
from underneath you. And of course, your opponent is picking the best ones to get rid of first. But then by the time you get to the end of a very long set of skirmishes, your companions have been stripped bare, and you've got nothing but just their own grit that's left
Yeah,
over.
I guess I didn't
And
even know that each skirmish phase was considered its own phase. I just
yep,
thought skirmish was the phase and then it had skirmishes within it. That's interesting. I mean,
no,
that makes
yeah.
this
By
way
the
even
end,
better than I thought.
unless you only have a couple of minions, this card is going to make it so that you've got just about nothing by the time you've reached the end.
And you have
So
to choose your order very carefully as the Free People's player if you have a support card that you're wanting to use. Although it's
mhm.
it's quite possibly already hindered from either the shadow or the
Yeah.
maneuver or the
So a lot of
archery.
times it's going to be a skill check on the side of the shadow player, making sure that okay,
Yeah.
which
Oh,
thing here is
yeah.
going to be
That
the most important.
this seems like the best Sight 9 I've seen.
Yeah, and
So
there's some good contenders I think for that
yeah.
for that in V3, but
But
the
it is the
idea though is
pinnacle of Mount Doom. So it's the
yeah.
top of the mountain that that you said we never have had. So
Yeah, this is it. This is the moment. This is
yeah.
the time where everything comes together. So if we're going to have a big bombastic ending, it's got to be here.
Yeah.
I think that in Fellowship Block, Decipher had the balance just right, where I feel like at the end of most Fellowship Block games, you end up with a big bloody fight between everybody, and all the companions are dead, and Frodo is exhausted, and he's got 8 burdens, and then they just barely squeak by. And I wanted to try and return us to a point where that was the norm rather than something that happens once every 50 games or something.
Mhm.
So there's a big focus on trying to shift the balance of power over to Shadow in V3 to kind of give them more of that opportunity to win, instead of just, oh, I'm going to slow them down just enough so my
Super
companions can
powerful
run.
at Sight 9 is the place to put it, so
Yeah.
that people don't like, losing to a shadow victory early down in the sight path. But if you lose it Sight 9, it's less of a feel bad because you at least made it, even though you didn't get the ring in the volcano, you made it to the volcano.
And if you do manage to beat it, you beat it with your hands tied behind your back, right? So like
Yeah.
you actually managed to thread the needle. So
Well, this
you
makes
earned
stuff
everything.
like, Tale of the Great Ring or stupid stuff like that too that people were relying on. You just can't rely on anything like that anymore,
Hmm.
at least as far as Sight 9 goes.
Yeah. It will mean that events are going to become more important. It can be very difficult sometimes to justify including an event because it's just it clogs up your hand. It doesn't necessarily have much of an
Hmm.
effect. But this is, I mean, that's going to be the one place where the pinnacle can't hit one of your cards. So if you have something that is hand based, that will possibly save you.
Oh yeah, that
So
makes sense. Yeah, and I agree with you. Those are oftentimes not included in decks just because of that very reason.
it's very hard to design a good event that is good enough that people want to use it and not just immediately binder fodder. It's so
Yeah, or
hard
it's
to.
like stack up a bunch of power according to his stature in your hand just for one use at the final site or whatever. I'm
Yeah,
not a
you very well could. That honestly, that would win you the game now, but it might be
that yeah,
necessary.
that was
Yeah,
a common way old strategy back in Fellowship.
yeah. Well, cool. This is all the spoilers that we had for today. So yeah, I mean
Well, yeah, thank you very much for being with us. I think that was awesome to just kind of chat through the cards with the your design development, what's your involvement in all of this? I know you have a team of play testers and all that, but maybe give us a little 2 minutes on that,
Sure.
and then we'll see you off. You know.
Yeah, so most of V3 was under my umbrella as a designer. Fanarfin was the one who designed most of V1 and V2, but I took point on this one. I also programming is one of my major contributions to the PC, so I also did a lot of the actual development. And then yeah, lots of play testers, lots of people that did get involved with the design process, pointing out, okay, well, this is a problem. This combo won't, is too problematic. This particular thing won't ever get played because of X, Y, and Z. So getting all that feedback definitely made it feel like more of a collaborative team effort where we
Awesome.
put it all together. But
Oh, cool. Oh, and I have to
yeah.
ask this as a paper player, these cards are printable V slips as
Mhm.
well if you want to take this on paper.
Yes, yeah. So once we release in December, we are gonna also make sure that VKit is updated. VKit is the tool that we stole from the Star Wars CCG that will allow you to pick whatever cards you want to print out and put it into a 3x3 grid or something that works with MPC, if you prefer to go that route. So that tool will be updated and available. And then as we progress towards the release, we're going to start releasing more comprehensive blog posts that show all the cards. So you'll be able to sit down and say, okay, what are all the Pipeweed cards and what's available, and then another post that's about all the Mounts Doom and so forth. So
Awesome.
be
Yeah,
on the
I
lookout for
always love
that.
following along with those blog posts and seeing the whole new strategy that can be used. And yeah, I know people love to play on GEMP. I'm not a GEMP player myself, surprisingly, but I know that's where 95% of the action is these days with the global community and the internet and all that. But yeah, I would love to see some people playing tournaments with these cards on paper. I know there's still some groups of people that get together for tournaments, but it would be awesome to see these used in that way. So that's my dream, is see some people bring these back on paper and rock them out that way. So
That would be cool, but good luck. I've
yeah,
practically given up on paper myself. I'm
yeah,
100% in on the digital age. Like you said, getting everybody connected worldwide. There's people in Czechia, there's people in France, Brazil,
yeah,
Germany,
yeah.
Italy.
What
Like it's
the global community that plays this on GEMP is pretty awesome. That we still have that for a game that's been around for almost 25 years, and um, still having, I think this is as you said, the largest influx of new cards that we've ever seen. Definitely, I know like V1 was very small, and then V2 was, medium, and then this is large.
yeah.
So that's cool that you're building up to larger larger card design pools.
I don't know that we're going to be able to manage to go a whole lot bigger than this because this took a year of development. It would
Oh yeah, and you
probably,
could have released this as three separate sets or whatever and called it a
yeah,
block,
maybe,
but um,
yeah, but
it's
I
kind
think
of
I
nice
think
to get all the whole strategy at once instead of dribbling it out to people.
right. And like that's kind of my philosophy behind the sort of content changes that we do, both between errata and V cards, is that we're looking to shake up the meta, right? We're looking to change the landscape and make everybody rethink, okay, what decks are good now? Because this deck just got nerfed and this deck just got buffed. I don't know which one's good. I can't just go and copy paste the world championship deck anymore because the context in which it exists isn't there anymore. So what do I do? And
Yeah.
that sort of Christmas morning joy of being able to look through everything and try to find the best answer yourself because nobody else has an answer yet online. So you might be the one to figure it out. Like that. That is really the experience that I'm hoping
Yeah,
to
very
model.
cool. And I definitely feel like this is going to shake up the meta, especially with the errata, to bring down some of the stuff that is too OP and then introduce a huge influx of new potential strategies. So I'm interested to see what rises to the top, and what the meta looks like. So
Okay. Well, thank you for having me here. Thanks for going over these cards with me. It's been a blast. We're definitely excited to get this all released here over the next month or
yeah,
so.
and thank you from on behalf of myself. Thanks from the community to Ketura for all the work that he does to keep this alive, and all the um, behind the scenes that goes into these cards. Obviously you can tell it's a beautiful end product, but thanks very much for your tireless efforts and organization of everything that goes into this.
Yeah, we're happy to do it.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone.